6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Through Black and White Eyes. Got a very special episode today, something very different to Newcastle stuff, but we've got a living legend of the microphone in the background waiting to come on to answer some questions about what it's like being a broadcaster. And I'm very interested in this because obviously I do this and class it as, amateur broadcasting, so it'll be interesting to hear how he started and what he enjoys doing. And we've also got his best ever 11 as well, so this is going to be very interesting to hear. Leslie, I'm looking to you in the chat to see if you know exactly who all these players are. Happy Monday everyone, welcome to the special. Please like and share, subscribe, it's free, adhere to community standards and all that sort of stuff. If you want to donate, bottom right hand corner, remember every donation pays towards the channel and the rest of it goes to charity. We are currently sitting on £6,700 donated since the channel started, and we're hoping to, by the end of next year, have that over £10,000. So we're on a road to what we want to do. I very quickly get rid of all these comments because I want to get Elton in and get started. I know you are all interested in it. Get your questions ready. And better get my glasses ready. Oh, you won't be able to see them. You'll just be able to hear about them. So welcome, Elton, to the channel. Thank you very much for doing this tonight.
Way, man.
Man.
Well, I thought I'd slip into the vernacular, early on.
It's brilliant. So you started your broadcasting career in Liverpool on a radio station. Can you tell me how you got into broadcasting?
I worked at a provincial newspaper to start with, and I worked there for 4 years, becoming sports editor, covering Liverpool, Widnes and Runcorn, and then Radio City. The Merseyside's new independent radio station kicked off in October 1974. I applied and was taken on, and I was there for best part of 4 years.
Wow, a long time. What made you go into broadcasting? Was it something you've always wanted to do, or is it something you just found yourself being good at?
Well, As I progressed in the local newspaper, I sort of thought, I really like journalism. I loved reporting on football, but I thought I'd like to do it by word of mouth as opposed to writing. So that's what led me to it. I did a little bit of work on BBC Radio Merseyside, very little, just so I knew what it was like to sit in a studio in front of a microphone. I read out local football results, the racing results, things like that. That was all. But it gave me a little bit of practice, a little bit of confidence as well, to thinking, oh, I don't sound too bad. I knew that. So it led me to the Radio City, the break, a big break, which was in Radio City. And that was absolutely fantastic. It was 3.5+ years. I really enjoyed it, very much so.
You ended up in front of the television with Granada TV. How did that happen? That was obviously your big break, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I was doing pretty well at Radio City, and obviously I've been listened to by the then head of sport for Granada Television, called Paul Doherty. He just rang me up right out of the blue and said, I want you to come and work for me at Granada. And so having recovered from the shock, I thought about it and thought, well, this is a good career move. So I did that.
Yeah, Gary says he remembers you from Granada's kickoff. I remember rightly. Are you an Everton fan? He asks.
I am. I am an Everton fan.
Oh. We'll stay away from that kind of
As is your manager, Eddie Howe, by the way.
Yes, he is. He is.
Eddie's an Everton fan.
He is.
Well, he was.
He was, yeah. Obviously, Bournemouth was in his blood quite a lot, wasn't it?
Yes, I would.
Player and a manager as well.
Yeah,
so.
but you never lose track of lose affection for the team you supported as a lad.
Yeah.
You know, I first went to Goodison Park in 1962. So I've been a Blue for a long, long time.
What do you think of the new stadium moving from
It's
Goodison?
Magnificent, but crikey. I first went to Goodison April 1962, and it was my introduction to First Division football, top flight football. Yeah. And I watched Everton beat Cardiff City 8-3. Wow. And of course, I was hooked, you know.
Don't see that every week.
Although, I mean, I wish I had a quid for every time I've been to Goodison Park down the years. I will miss Goodison very much. But I think the new stadium at Bramley Moor Dock is absolutely essential for our club. Yeah. It's interesting with Newcastle, you know, you developed St James's Park, and it is a magnificent stadium. But you didn't have to move in order to get that. You know, we've had to move in order to progress.
Well, we're now at the stage now where do we go down the same route as yourselves? Because we're stuck on 52,000. There's no way we can really develop it without.
Is that right?
Oh. Yeah, it's very difficult. We can probably extend the Gallagher end, but then you've got one side of the ground which will just be dwarfed by the other three sides.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's a tough one. There's a lot of rumours that Leazes Park is going to be where the new the new stadium's going to be. We're going to move literally 100 yards away. So. And again, you're right, for your team and for potentially our club as well, to be able to progress and get PSR out the way. A new super stadium is one of the ways to do it, isn't it?
Don't get me started on PSR.
I know.
Right.
Yeah, we kind of sidetracked a little bit there. Let's get back to the good stuff. So you've been involved in some unbelievable events, the 1982 World Cup, the 1986 World Cup. You know, you were presenting the 1990 World Cup as well, the 1988 European Championships. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, what was your favorite? Which one did you enjoy the most?
As a trip, I thoroughly enjoyed West Germany in '88. It was we really bought into the culture of the German culture, and I really did enjoy it. But in terms of from a professional point of view, I'd have to say the European Championships in Sweden in '92, because we presented all the games live from the ground. There was no backup studio in London. And it was so everything came from Sweden, and I was accompanied by for every game. He became a really good mate of mine too, a former Newcastle manager, of course, in Jack Charlton, and we became really close. We worked together many times up until Jack, you know, didn't get well, wasn't well, which obviously curtailed, you know, his stage appearances, his after dinner appearances, but we did a lot of those together. We didn't just work together on television. We were pals outside of that as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. What's your best Jack story?
Well, I'll tell you one, which we did a show in Douglas, Isle of Man. Three of us. There was myself, Tommy Smith, and Jack. And after the show, we went to a pub in Douglas. It was an Irish pub, funnily enough. And Jack was telling us a story about Sven-Göran Eriksson, the late Sven-Göran Eriksson, that when Sven had got the England job, Jack was openly critical, thinking it should have been an Englishman, you know. And he felt a bit guilty because anyway, he bumped into Sven not so long afterwards. And he sort of went up to Sven and said, look, my name is Jack Charlton. And, you know, and Sven said, Jackie, don't you remember me? And Jack sort of, what? He said, I used to come and observe your training methods at Sheffield Wednesday. I stayed at your house. Jack Jack didn't have a clue. He couldn't remember it.
That is
And so
brilliant.
Tommy and I after we picked ourselves up off the floor from laughter, we said, Jack, you've got to use that in your routine. It's a brilliant story. And to the best of my knowledge, certainly on the subsequent ones that he did, he put that story in. So I think that became part of his routine. He didn't even think it was funny until we told him, Jack, this is gold. Use it.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, you shouldn't be England manager, but I'm going to watch your training.
yeah, that's incredible. Incredible.
That's absolutely brilliant. Obviously, you didn't just do football. You obviously, you did the Olympics and things like that as well. What was the difference between the two sports that you found being a broadcaster? Was it a lot easier doing the Olympics than it was the football, or did you?
It was harder doing the Olympics because I presented through the night from the Thames studios in London. So I was on air from say 12:30, 1 o'clock till about 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's a hard slog. And you're also jumping sports. 1 minute you're doing hockey, the next minute you could be doing show jumping. And whichever was most interesting at the time, the producer director would say to me, all right, we're coming out of this and we're going to something else. So I had a working knowledge, should I say, of about 15 more sports than I'd ever been accustomed to prior to that. So it was a lot of homework in the build-up to the 88 Olympics in Seoul. As I say, just to get a working knowledge of sports that I had no idea about, to be honest with you.
Who the shot put champion was, and javelin, and you got to go to track and field, long jump, high jump.
Yeah, but all the other sports as well. As I say, we had to be up to speed with show jumping, dressage.
Oh yeah, of course.
Luckily for the equestrian stuff, I had a great sidekick with me, Harvey Smith, and so he guided me through the show jumping and the equestrian, anything, the dressage. Oh dear, the most boring sport. It has to be, if indeed you can call it a sport. We had a dressage one night, probably about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. The dressage was on. Now, we were all a bit tired anyway at that time in the morning. Doesn't matter how much you adjust your body clock, you hit a wall. You're feeling tired in the early hours of the morning. And the dressage was on, not exactly, making us feel any more awake than we were. At the end of the dressage, it cut back to me, Harvey alongside me. I said, well, Harvey, what do you think of that? And Harvey went, not a lot. I said, yeah, but, I didn't actually say this, but we had about 2 minutes to fill before the commercial break. So I needed a bit more than not a lot. So I said, well, it's, can you elaborate a little bit, Harvey? And he said, Osses are meant to jump or race. They're not meant to be bloody ballet dancers. Okay, fine, Harvey. Well, coming up after the break, and about a minute and a half later, we went to the commercial break,
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Who was your most favorite? Was Harvey Smith one of the most favorite people to present with, or did you have somebody else who you?
Well, that was a one-off. That was just for the Olympics, I mean, I met Harvey a couple of times since then. Horse of the Year show, went as his guest one occasion, but mainly the people that I worked with were football people. Yeah.
Who would you say was your partner in crime? Who was your Robin to your Batman?
Right. Well, Jack to start with, but and I'm not just saying this because it's basically a Newcastle podcast, but Sir Bobby Robson. Without a doubt, because the highlight of my television career was the 1989 championship decider between Liverpool and Arsenal at Highbury. I mean, Arsenal didn't stand a chance, did they? They had to win by 2 clear goals against a side who were unbeaten since January.
I remember it well.
And Sir Bobby was my studio guest for that, and he was terrific. I mean, the kickoff was delayed by 15 minutes, so we had quite a bit more talk time than normal. But Bobby was a joy to to talk to. And he knew when Bobby knew instinctively when to give a slightly longer answer or a shorter answer. He understood. Yeah.
I bet he did. Was that?
So I really enjoyed working with Sir Bob.
I bet. Did Alan Smith score the second goal for Arsenal that day? Or did he score
No, Alan Smith scored the first goal. He was man of the match. He was certainly man of the match. And he also laid on the goal that won it for Arsenal and won the championship for Arsenal, scored by Michael Thomas. Brian Moore's famous words, "It's up for grabs now." And Thomas scored. Yeah, no, that was a wonderful night. And people have often said to me, "Oh, you only highlight that game because you're an Evertonian." Rubbish. It was history. It's the greatest ever finish to the top five. The old First Division, the current Premier League have never ever had a finish like that.
There's a close one with Man City, Queen's Park Rangers.
It was a great finish. It was. Yeah. And people say it's the greatest finish in the Premier League era. There was football before 1992, you know.
There definitely was, I know. It drives me nuts because I was looking at the Newcastle all-time goal scoring list for the Premier League, and you've literally got Alan Shearer on 303 goals, and then you've got your next best, Callum Wilson, on 46. And I'm like, well, where's Jackie Milburn?
The injury-plagued Callum Wilson.
Yeah, but like, where's Len White? Where's all these great players that we had? And it's like stats didn't exist, before the Premier League, did it?
You wouldn't have thought so, would you?
No, it's very frustrating. Obviously, that's one of the things that you disliked quite a bit was obviously the Premier League breaking off. What difference do you see now from what Sky do to what you guys used to do?
They have a lot more. They have a lot more time. They have much more. We had maybe usually about 5 minutes, sometimes between 5 and 10 minutes once we came on air until the kickoff. So we had to be much more concise. We had to get out the same amount of information that Sky do, but they maybe have an hour or an hour and a half to do it. We had kind of 5 minutes, but we still got the message over in 5 minutes. It was much more disciplined back then than it is now, and understandably.
See, I find with Sky there's too many adverts, and I find that when you watched it back in the day, there was a lot more talk about the game, and decent tactics, looking into things. And then Sky now, literally, especially for the halftime break, you must hear about 2 minutes of talking, and you're watching 13 minutes of adverts.
Yes, I'm one of the things I've noticed is they go to the advert straight after the first half had finished. Then they have a chat, and then there are more adverts, and then they'll do a quick voiceover and more adverts. So I think, yes, I think they could do better with the adverts. But I'm not being critical of that. The adverts, certainly with where live television, live football is concerned, it's great revenue for Sky.
Yeah. I get that side of it, but as
people don't tend to record a live football game, do they? They tend to watch it live. But if you record it, you can just spool through the adverts quickly and not see them. So,
it's true. I want to hear more about the game at halftime than I do want to see like 30.
Oh, sure. Well, everyone would. Yeah.
Fellow Merseysider Joey Barton has an opinion too about the state of modern day broadcasting. What does Elton think about the increasing amount of virtue signaling in modern broadcasting?
Well, there's a lot of woke box ticking nowadays. It seems that, have we got such and such? Yes. And we such, it's the criteria should be, are they good enough? Yes. Whether they're male, female, green, purple, whatever, if they're good enough, that's fine by me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. This is a good question for you. What makes the perfect broadcaster? So if there was someone watching this who wanted to go into broadcasting, what advice would you give? I knew I'd get you with that one.
Be lucky.
Well, you said you got a phone call, didn't you, out of the blue? And
it was.
That's what it is, isn't it?
It's just
right place, right time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I could have, during my local radio days, I could have been working for Radio Cumbria, covering Carlisle United, But I was working for Radio City and covering Liverpool at home and abroad when Liverpool won the UEFA Cup, the Championship, the European Cup. So I was known and heard by people that mattered, you know.
That's it. Just get your voice out there, I suppose, is probably the best advice, isn't it?
Well,
never
yes.
say no to anything, and
It helps if you have a distinctive voice, and by that I don't mean posh at all. If you've got a good regional accent, there's nothing wrong with that. Just use your voice properly, which a lot of commentators now don't. Basically, I don't think they do. There's one, I'm not going to mention his name, who I'm in touch with, and I've said to him, you know, I think you've got a good voice, but you don't use it properly. And he's working on it, believe it or not. I can't give you the name, it would be unfair, but believe me, he
constructive criticism is always good.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, I learnt off I would say 3 of the best in terms of their voices, and that will be Hugh Johns, Brian Moore, and Gerald Sinstadt. Now, I wasn't a commentator. I didn't follow their road into commentary, but in terms of their voice and the way they used their voice and the way they spoke, the words, the phrases that they emphasized, I learnt off that without a doubt.
Oh, brilliant. There we go, guys. That's the way to do it. Elton, are there any similarities you've seen between the Premier League Sky era of '92, took over the English game, and the failed Super League attempts a few years ago?
Sorry, just repeat that one. I do apologize.
Of course, yeah. So do you see any
serious questions? I really want to take it in.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So are there any similarities you've seen between how the Premier League Sky era of '92 took over the English game from BBC and ITV, and the failed Super League attempts a few years ago? So are the Super League going down the same route as the Premier League did to take over football?
Right, well, to start with, we've got the Super League, haven't we? In a way, we have it. All you've got to do is look at the fixtures and the league tables of the Championship, the UEFA, the Europa League, and the Europa League Conference. You know, the number of clubs in there is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, when I was doing the European Cup, before it became the Champions League, the European Cup, back in the mid-'70s, there were only the champions of each country. Not the ones who finished in 4th place. So that's obviously a massive change now. As I say, I think the Super League, the concept that you're talking about, will happen. I hope it will be after I'm gone, basically. I think it would take 10 years for that to happen, minimum, because I don't think that the supporters would have it. I really don't think they would have it.
I don't personally.
No. But I do. Having said that, I do believe it will happen at some point in time.
Yeah, money talks, doesn't it? Unfortunately,
absolutely, and that is the main difference between the years up to and the years after '92. As soon as the Premier League was established and basically broke away from the Footballers Association. It became slowly to start with, but it became all about money.
Yes,
and that is what the game is now, and also the innovations that have been brought in more recently, which I personally don't like. I know people watching this now will say, "Oh, it's because he's an old fart. He's a dinosaur." It's not. Believe me, it's not. What I'm driving towards is, I don't like VAR. I cannot stand VAR. I don't like it at all. It's killing the spontaneity of the game. You know, it's got to a stage now where players and supporters are celebrating twice.
Yes. Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, I watched the Newcastle game, obviously, on Saturday, and we scored after 23 seconds, and the goal wasn't given until 3 minutes.
You played well, too. You played well.
Very well.
Yeah.
But 3 minutes to make a decision on whether that goal should stand was just ridiculous.
I think the record is just over 5, isn't it? I think
so, yeah.
I think I'm right in saying that the record not not a record I particularly want to boast about, but I think the record for a VAR decision is just over 5 minutes. It's a farce. It's absolute terrible.
Now, I don't like VAR as in the way that the referees have become very slack in making decisions now as well. They seem to not want to take authority of a football match anymore. They're waiting for VAR to step in and help them. The only thing I like about technology is when they bring it in is the semi-automated offside. Now that is what's used in the Champions League. That is brilliant.
Yes, it's brilliant. I don't think a player should be offside by his toenail. I
agree with that as well, but
it just doesn't sit with me at all, I'm afraid.
There's obviously some people say there should be daylight, should it be this, should it be that, but at least with the semi-automated offside, it's quick, it's very, very accurate. It literally, as soon as the ball's kicked, it takes a picture to the whole.
Yes, it will be totally accurate, which means a player, if you like, his big toe can be offside. Yeah. He's offside. I think that is ridiculous. I really do. Players, even like Thierry Henry, classic example. He would sit alongside the back four, however they were lined up, whatever the system was. And then he'd walk a step offside before a ball was played. He'd take a step offside. So if the ball was released then, and he was offside. But what he'd do then is do a little turn. He'd come back onside, and then he was off. And defenders didn't, even though it was a tried and trusted format for him, defenders just didn't realize it was happening, basically. Very, very clever.
Oh, yeah. He was
and I'm sure he would have been offside, but literally by half a foot.
Yeah.
But, very difficult for linesmen to spot that.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be some sort of degree of, like in cricket, if I always go back to cricket when I talk about VAR, because I think cricket have got it spot on. And if you get an LBW decision against you and the ball is less than 50% hitting you in line with the stumps, it goes with the batsman, not with the ball.
Yeah.
An umpire's decision and things like that. So, there are things football need to really look at and get right. But
very much. Very much.
I think the semi-automated offside is very good technology because it speeds it up, is basically why I like it.
Yes, because I'll give you that. I'll concede that point. If it's quicker, great. I still don't like it. I just wish it wasn't there. I wish it was solely down to the little fella with his flag on the touchline. Yeah. And he will make mistakes, of course he will.
Yeah. It gives us good talking points in the pub the next day, doesn't it?
Well,
we were robbed. Right. Andy, thank you so much for that, and also for donating £20 into Kieran's charity. That's amazing. So well done, pal. Really appreciate that. And Andy's getting a few plaudits, as he should. Is it right that Elton's son works for B&, Sports with Richard Keys and Andy Gray? If so, does he enjoy it?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Yes, he does. He's the studio director of their program, for the live football. Yeah. Chris basically directs the studio output, and I can tell you what he's doing on Christmas Day alongside Andy Gray. Really? They're playing golf. They're playing golf at 10 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, that's the life, isn't it? Does Elton think there is enough passion in English-speaking football commentary in general? That's an interesting
I don't think there's much as there was.
Do you think there's a lot of bias now in sorry to interrupt, but a lot of bias in a lot of the football punditries we have now, like Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher? They always, whenever they're doing a neutral game, I don't know.
I know what you're saying.
Quite bias with their commentary, don't they?
I know what you're saying. I don't like to listen to Gary Neville co-commentating on a Man United game. I think Gary Neville is top class at what he does in the studio, how he argues points of principle in football. I think he's excellent in terms of that. I actually think Gary Neville will end up running football in about sort of 15, 20 years. I really do. Because he loves the game.
Yeah.
He's got the best interest of the game at heart. But when he's co-commentating on Manchester United, you can tell by the tone of his voice that he doesn't like what Man United are doing, or conversely, he likes what Man United are doing, which hasn't happened very often in the past couple of years, I must admit. But I don't think, for example, Jamie Carragher commentating on Liverpool, I just don't think they should be commentating on their team's games.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember when we played at Anfield and we got hammered, and there was that time when Jota fell over two strides after Dubravka slightly touched him with his elbow, and he had this massive screen, and he was going, "There's the touch, and I'm like, you're meant to be there as a sort of a neutral. You're meant to be looking at it, and he's just a Liverpool fan wanting Liverpool to win, and I was just, I can't watch it anymore. I can't do it. What was this one? Speaking of VAR killing the spontaneity of the game, what are your thoughts on what I perceive modern day player interviews compared to the Gaza days? So obviously players are very wooden these days in front of the camera, aren't they? But if you got Gaza back in the day, he used to be brilliant, didn't he?
Oh, Gaza was great fun. Yeah, it's totally the access to teams and managers has changed so much since my time. I mean, we grabbed them on the pitch, after a game. We didn't have the advertising boards behind and all that. We just, the access was open, totally open access. No one was saying you can do this, you can't do that. Yeah. It was so much more relaxed as well. The interview situations that you see after games now all seem to be sort of formal. Yes. Back in the day, they were very informal. And I think better for it, to be honest.
I agree. Follow up on my previous question to the one we've just answered. Do you miss the days of managers like KK addressing fans on the steps of St James's compared to in the studio? Is there a bigger gap now between grassroots fans and clubs?
Well, Kevin was a one-off. Well, I thought his relationship with the Newcastle fans was terrific. I think he modelled himself in that respect on Bill Shankly.
Yes,
I really do, because Shanks had an incredible rapport with the Liverpool fans, which Kevin, from this is an outsider's point of view, I wasn't seeing what was going on at St James's Park on a daily basis, but it always struck me that the Newcastle fans idolised Kevin, both as a player and as a manager. And he related to them too, which I think was very, very important. It was like a mutual admiration society. That's how it's seen from afar.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I never saw Keegan as a player. Obviously, I was too young. But when he came back as manager, that was when we had season tickets with my dad. And he just said, look, just enjoy this because you'll never see this again. And he was right.
I remember, in that wonderful interview he did, where he was basically having a go at Fergie, wasn't he?
Yes,
I'd love it. I'd love that one. That was fantastic. That was raw Kevin. That it was, but you could see Shanks saying that. You son, if he does that, it was Kevin. It was Kevin doing an impersonation of Shanks, but without the voice.
It was basically Kevin being Kevin, wasn't it? And it was being raw and honest at that time. He didn't like what Fergie said about Stuart Pearce and about how he was saying things. And you'll never get that again in front of a camera with a manager. I think the only one you might slightly maybe push towards doing it would be Ange at Spurs. I think he's very personal.
It seems to me that he takes things personally as well, and then he denies that it bothers him or whatever. But it clearly, by his body language, you can tell that it's got under his skin.
Yeah,
I like the guy. I've never met him, but from what I've seen, I like the guy.
I reckon he'd be a good one to go out on the drink with and have a good conversation with.
He seems a very personable chap. Yes.
This is a good one. Brian Clough was a legend. Did Elton experience Clough's tongue?
Oh, I write in my book that Cloughie could cut you in half with his tongue. I worked with Cloughie on many, many occasions, and I always came away unscathed. We got on. I'll tell you one story. We did a game at the City Ground, and I was in the corridor adjacent to his office, and I was talking to one of his assistants, Ronnie Fenton. And all of a sudden, the office door opens, Cloughie comes down, and all I hear is, "Welsby, shithead." And I went, "Oh," I said to Ronnie Fenton, "What have I done?" He said, "Oh, no," he says, "don't worry about that. That means he likes you." Brian's a bit funny like that. Never had a problem with Cloughie. Never had a problem.
That's brilliant. We're going to get onto your book very, very soon. I can
Okay.
promise you. That is one thing I definitely want to do. But very quickly, before we jump onto the next segment, don't forget to subscribe, guys. Don't forget the thumbs up. There is a membership option if you want to. Like I said, the money goes into running the channel, and then the rest of it goes to charity. We do have 2 great sponsors, Diet Crow, Baz 20% off. Link is in the description. And we've also got Football Prizes, who are doing this amazing competition. An Alan Shearer signed shirt. We could also win an Andy Cole boot, Peter Beardsley top, Tino Asprilla top, Gasser top, Rob Air top. All up for grabs. Link is in the description below. It's a fantastic prize. And then finally, on the 16th of January, we're doing a live show with Luke Edwards, who's a fantastic reporter, and really looking forward to doing that. And all the money is going to Stanley Deaf Club and the NUFC Food Bank. So we've got 20 tickets left. Email
well done.
Down. Yeah,
hey,
we're
well
trying
done.
our best. We're trying our best, mate. We really are.
Very good, young man. Very good.
We're trying. That's all about Ange, overrated. Ooh, oh, must be something I missed there. Always happens. Before we go on to your book, one more quick question about
sure.
some of the greats that you've talked about already. Sir Bobby Robson, probably. I know Kevin Keegan's right up there, but Bobby Robson was just a step.
He is for me. Kevin's right up there with me. I knew Kevin obviously when he played for Liverpool in his early days at Liverpool. So I've known Kevin for a long, long time.
Well, Bobby Robson just shades it for me. I just think there was something special about that man and what he did. Do you have a particular Bobby Robson story you can share with us?
Well, the one that every time Bobby's name is mentioned, and when I'm asked about Bobby, I can't get 89 out of my head. That game at Anfield. When the game had finished, there were 3 of us in the studio, apart from the cameraman. There were 3 sort of, if you like, football people in the studio. Myself as the presenter, Bobby Robson alongside me, and for some reason, Ian St. John had sat just behind us. I mean, he could have been, sat anywhere in the ground if he'd have wanted to. He could have been in the director's box, but he wanted to sit in the television studio, probably just to take it all in without being bothered. So he was sat on a stool just behind us. And when the final whistle went and Arsenal had done it, they'd beaten Liverpool 2-0 to win the championship, Ian St. John threw his head in his hands like that and toppled off his stool. He fell off his stool. Bobby was just sat there, to get to your question. Bobby was sat there, and I'll never forget this. Bobby sat there like that, and he was going, "This game never ceases to amaze me. This game never ceases to amaze me. Elton, this game never ceases to amaze me." He must have said that, I don't know, half a dozen times, back to back, with nothing in between. Never ceases to amaze me. Because he loved football so much, and he had such a great knowledge of the history of football as well.
Oh yeah.
But this game and this outcome was a completely one-off, and it obviously resonated with Bobby in that way.
He's seen
he was wonderful company, Sir Bob. He was wonderful company.
It's one of the biggest regrets of my life was not being able to meet him. Not from lack of trying, just never working book signings and things like that, queues a mile long. But he always had time for everyone, didn't he?
He did.
And especially children, and that if children was there, he would ask them questions and talk to them. He was just brilliant. He was a legend.
Well, there are two queues for autographs that I can remember. One was with Kevin, and it was in a club in Liverpool where Kevin and I had done on stage kind of a Parkinson-style interview.
Yeah.
And of course, there must have been 200 fans in there. In other words, the place was packed. It wasn't a massive club, but that was the scene. And so we finished on stage round about midnight. Having done an hour and say a quarter, just me chatting to Kevin and, the life and times of Kevin Keegan, up to that point. And he stayed with his wife, Jean, isn't it? Sat at the table in the club till 2 o'clock time, just signing autographs. He didn't say no to anybody. I mean, if there were selfies in those days, it would have taken even longer.
Well,
and the other was Sir Bob. And I think Tranmere. It was at Tranmere Rovers, the nearest professional club to where I live, and I used to go to Tranmere on a Friday night because you meet so many people from football there on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And Sir Bob was there one Friday night, and I sort of went over to hi Bob, and he seemed puzzled. I said, Elton Welsby, Bob, we last met, such and such. And he said, "Oh no," he said, "No, yeah." He said, "I'm just trying to work out when was the last time we met." And it bothered him that he couldn't remember the last time we've met. And then people started coming up, for his autograph. And he missed the start of the second half because this was the half time, and he missed the start of the second half because he was continually signing autographs. It wouldn't say no to anybody. Would not even listen. The game's just about to restart. I've got to get into, which is an easy, an understandable reaction. But no, he just continued doing it.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I can back up the Kevin Keegan one because I was lucky enough to go to one of those dinner things that you've hosted before, and it was Kevin Keegan, and he literally. All I saw him doing in the interval was just signing, because we all got our picture taken with him at the start of it. Everyone got a picture taken who paid for it. It was like £10 to get your picture taken with Kevin Keegan. I mean, who's going to say no to that? And everyone did. Everyone said yes. So he had everyone in the whole of this room, which must have held about 400 people, getting the photograph taken with him. And then he was signing every single photograph through the interval while people were coming up and asking him questions. And he never shied away from anyone.
Yeah.
And then
real gentleman. I've always said, I'll stand by this too. I've always said, the bigger they are, the nicer they are, know? And I put Kevin almost right at the top of that list, along with Johan Cruyff. There you go. I mean,
Cruyff. There's a name.
Lovely guy.
Paul, no, I'm not working Christmas Day, thank God. Right. Your book. It is out. And this is where we get it from.
Stan the man.
Yeah. So
I
stole this picture.
Oh, that's fine. All you got to do is it's only available at Amazon. So you just type eltonwelsby.com, all lowercase, and click on. And I was going to say at any other time of year, you'd have it within 48 hours. But I think now it will be just after Christmas.
It'll just be a tad bit after Christmas. Do you want to tell us about some of the stuff briefly, what's in the book without spoiling it for people?
Well, it's about my career, but it also featuring the great characters that I worked with in broadcasting for over 20 years. We've mentioned a lot of them. Sir Bob, Cluffy, Bill Shankly. Oh, many, many more. Many more.
I bet. I put the link in the description,
Big Jack.
Guys. Oh, Big Jack, of course.
Yeah, he features prominently,
links in the description, guys. It is that website. All you got to do is click on it, and then it takes you to it, and then you can buy the book, and I'm sure it'll be an excellent read.
Cheers,
if you've got an audio version, I'll be buying that because I'm not a very good reader.
It's the Kindle. There's a Kindle version.
Oh, there we go. What's this one? Did you sit on Santa's? Come on, Jay. There's a few fun ones in the chat now. Right. I asked you a little bit of a late question, and I apologize for this, but I thought, you've seen some players over the years, so this will be very interesting to hear. You have done a World 11 for me, your best players that you have seen, which is going to be more interesting. So let's go through that if you don't mind. Who have we got in goal? Or what formation are we playing, first of all?
I'm playing 4-3-1-2.
Ooh. I thought you were going to say 4-4-2.
No. I don't swear unless I'm provoked.
Oh, there we go. Well, it's from that famous movie, isn't it?
Right.
So
in goal.
4-3-1-2, wasn't it? Yeah.
But in goal, I've got Lev Yashin.
Oh, I've not heard that name before. Is this the one that you said that we wouldn't hear?
That's the one that a lot of people wouldn't guess. He was the Soviet goalkeeper. He's the only goalkeeper to have won the Ballon d'Or, which was in 1963.
Wow.
And his nickname was the Black Spider or the Black Panther. I think he was called both. I saw him in 1966 in the World Cup, playing for Russia. I'll call it Russia. It was USSR or Soviet Union in those days. I've never seen a keeper so commanding in the box, telling set pieces, telling players where to go, who to mark, etc. And also terribly agile, wonderfully so. So Lev Yashin. Oh, incidentally, it goes out that he saved over 150 penalties in his career.
Wow.
His league team was
defended by the sounds of things.
Well, no wonder he was commanded and telling his defenders what to do. He's probably yelling, "Don't foul him." Maybe it's the other way around. Foul him because I'll save the penalty. 150 penalties saved over.
That's incredible.
Penalties saved. Right.
That is incredible.
You want my back four?
Yes, please.
Right back, Jalmar Santos. There's one you might not know. Jalmar Santos was the Brazilian right back, who was the first. They said the first overlapping fullback, ball playing fullback. He was a cultured player. He could also play centre half. So when he played right back at set pieces, corners, etc., he was invaluable in the heart of their defence. But a wonderful player who I saw in the 1966 World Cup group games at Goodison Park. So I've seen him play. He was past his best then, I have to say. I must add that. He was past his best in 66. But I saw enough of him to know that he was not like a typical English right back, if you get my gist.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like he was one of the first, like you said, the first overlapping.
We're getting to the familiar names now. Franz Beckenbauer, I would have at the back. Now, I mean, all right, he wore number 5. He was ostensibly a centre half, but he could play in midfield. He could play sweeper, libero, the German word for sweeper, where he played just behind and then break through. The closest that people might associate with Beckenbauer who played in this country would be Alan Hansen. He was that type, very graceful player. Now, alongside Beckenbauer, I have Bobby Moore.
There we go.
The 1966 World Cup captain. Yeah. Moore wasn't particularly quick. He wasn't particularly good in the air, but what an immaculate player. Yeah. Absolutely immaculate. His reading of the game, his interception. He made a tackle in 1970 against Pelles, which is still rated the best tackle of all time. Yeah, it is. Absolutely fantastic player. I mean, Jack tells a great story that in the dying embers of the 66 World Cup final, into extra time, England leading 3-2. Ball breaks to Bobby. Big Jack, he told me, I'm saying, kick it out, get that fucking thing, Jack, kick it into the stands. Bobby Moore, looks up, sees Jeff Hurst, hits about a 50-yard pass to Jeff Hurst, who goes on and scores the 4th goal. Bobby Moore, totally unflappable, and a wonderful player. At left back, I've got Paolo Maldini, who played...
what a player.
650 odd games for AC Milan, God knows how many for Italy. Just the most polished left back. I mean, if I had to twist my own wrist to put him in ahead of Ray Wilson, but no, Maldini.
Yeah, but Maldini could also play centre back, sweeper as well. He was very
exactly. He was so versatile.
Yeah, you've got a lot of versatility in your back line so far, so
right.
Very interesting.
Controversial one. I have to have an Everton player in, but in my middle three, I've got Alan Ball, man of the match by a country mile in the '66 World Cup final, championship winner with Everton in 1970, genuinely world class. No question about that. And when you see the others I've got, you can see why I've gone for Ball in my team, because I get a bit more work rate and a bit more endeavour out of him than I would out of the rest. Okay.
I'd say it's the very attack.
So inside of, if you like, centre, the conductor of the orchestra, Johan Cruyff.
Oh, there we go, Cruyff.
Now, for those who don't know about Cruyff, the most authoritative player on a pitch I think I've ever seen. If anyone sees a replay, you just need to see the first minute of the 1974 World Cup final, Germany against Holland. Cruyff, the Dutch captain, he gets the ball and he starts pointing to where he wants the players to go. He gives it, gets it back, and he's still pointing. All of a sudden, he takes off and he gets into the German penalty area. He's fouled for a penalty. Holland had a penalty in that World Cup final before any German player had touched the ball, and that was just typical of Cruyff and the way he used to do it. But also, he is the guy basically who is responsible for Man City winning 4 Premier League titles on the spin, because it was his influence over Pep Guardiola when Guardiola was a player at Barcelona and Cruyff was the coach that instilled into Pep this belief of the way that City play. And Cruyff was something else. Right. On the left as such, although these I want my team to play a bit total football. So on the left, but George Best.
Oh yeah, there was a player.
Now he would run with the ball, and you think the ball was tied to his boot. He was incredible. Now, who knows what Bestie would have achieved if he had a decent lifestyle, which he didn't, and everyone knows he didn't. Bestie knew he didn't. But in the late '60s, he was just crikey. I say it's a pity. That sounds terribly racist. It was a pity he was Irish, because with them not getting to the World Cups and things like that.
Yeah, you never got to on
the world stage. Never really appreciated George Best, but believe me, he's in my top 4 players of all time. And I go back to watching live football since 1962.
Can you remember that game in the FA Cup when he rounded the goalkeeper and put it in, and the keeper said, "Can you just stop it now?" And then he went and played centre back.
That was the European Cup final. Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, the FA Cup game where he scored 5 or something like that.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. And he put one in.
He scored 6.
6, sorry. 6.
And the goalkeeper was Kim Brook, the brother of Tony Brook, the Manchester City captain when they won the title in '68. Or was it 7? Well, one of the two. And there was one. You're right. He went at him. I think it was his 5th goal, and he just swiveled his hips without breaking stride. Kimbo dived away from George and the ball. It was almost like he was saying, "Go on, George, walk it in." Fantastic.
Apparently, the keeper said to him, he said, "Do you mind stopping it now?" And George said, "All right, then," and went and played centre back for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. Kim had enough. Right in front of my 2, if you like, strikers, just behind them, should I say? I've got Pelles. So I'm playing him just off the front of it. He was never a regular centre forward. What anybody said, he wasn't. all you're going to do to know what Pele was like and his understanding of the game is watch Brazil's 4th goal in the 1970 World Cup final against Italy, where Clodoaldo starts to move off. It goes a few players involved, Jairzinho being one. I think it was Jairzinho or Gerson, one of the two. He passes it to Pele, who behind Pele, how he saw this, I will never know. Behind Pele is Carlos Alberto, who's just herring up from right back, herring up down the right-hand side. And Pele takes the ball without even looking at Carlos Alberto, side foots it right into Alberto's path, into the bottom corner. It's long regarded as the greatest team goal of all time.
Yeah, we see it all the time, don't we?
So I would just recommend anybody to dig that out and have, if they haven't seen it, to dig that out. But note Pele's role. It's subliminal, really, but the weight of his pass to Carlos Alberto was just something. It
was just nonchalant, though, wasn't it? Because he just got it without doing it. Just 5-yard pass, and it was perfect.
Yeah. But, you know, in a World Cup final, and to be, as you say, the great word, it's so nonchalant. And yet, it was perfect. Maya, you want my front two now?
Yes, please.
I'm a manager. Right. The sort of slightly to the left, both of them predominantly left-footed. Maradona is one who's totally left-footed. His right foot was just to stand on. Maradona, for me, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. That's my, What he could do with the football was just unbelievable. It was like, if he hadn't gone to a football field, he'd gone to the circus, you know, doing ball skills in the circus. He was absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, he remembered, I suppose, in this country for his famous handball, the hand of God goal in '86. You know, but the second goal, he ran through the entire. Oh, I mean, and you know, you think at club level with Napoli. I mean, they won the title. It hadn't won the championship in Italy for something like 20 years, maybe. Along comes Maradona. They win it twice in 3 years, and it was Maradona who won it. You know, he had some good players with him, of course he did, but. You know, it was him and Maradona alone. Maradona, there are still murals of him, you know, in Naples. He is a god there, you know.
There's a lot of people wondering why you never picked Gordon Banks. Obviously, you explained it. Obviously,
it was a toss-up between Yashin and Banks, and that's true. But I thought I'd be a little bit different and go for Yashin. That's all. If someone had said, "Oh no, you've got to put Banks in," that wouldn't have bothered me. If Gordon Banks was my stopper in my dream team here, that wouldn't bother me at all. I just went for Yashin. Okay, as the only goalkeeper to win the Ballon d'Or. There you go. And I did see him play.
It's a great reason. Very quickly, Matt, thank you so much for that donation. That's really, really appreciated. Pele was one of the original GOATs, as was Maradona. So.
Got one more. Well, I've got
one more.
Jimmy Greaves.
Yes,
with that team will create so many chances. You need a real poacher. Jimmy Greaves, 402 goals in 617 games. I think that is unbelievable. He scored 44 times in 57 games for England.
Wow.
I mean, this guy was the ultimate goal scorer. There were two in my youth when I was growing up watching football who I used to go and watch just to see them score. One was Dennis Law and the other was Jimmy Greaves. But Greaves, I'd love to have put Dennis in there because he's a mate. But there again, so is Greavesy, you know, obviously from the St. and Greavesy show, which I used to work on. But so maybe a little bit biased towards Greavesy, but his goals record is just beyond compare.
Phenomenal. Absolutely.
You want my manager?
Yes, please. Who would manage this side? It's got to be
Rinus Michels. Rinus
Oh.
Michels. Oh, yeah. Well, with Cruyff in the middle of midfield, Michels had to be the manager. Michels drew up the blueprint for total football, basically.
Yeah.
He introduced total football to the world when he was manager of Ajax in the mid-60s. And of course, his lieutenant on the pitch, if you like, the conductor of his orchestra was Johan Cruyff. So there's a nice bit of symmetry there. Cruyff would be my captain of the team, and Michels will be the manager.
Wow.
There you go.
Great team. I am.
Oh, no one to beat that. Baz, please. What team could you come up with to beat that one?
I give Kevin Keegan's Newcastle side best 11. Potentially might score one goal against them, but I can't see them beating them.
I think my side will concede. Don't get me wrong, but any team would have to score about 7 or 8 to beat them.
You would need at least 7 defenders on the pitch to try and stop them, and even then, I don't think you are going to stop them.
You look at the ball artistry of Cruyff, Best, Maradona, Pele.
Yeah.
I mean, God,
unreal.
I'm my mouth's watering just looking at that team. I think. Yeah.
I mean, I would love a computer simulator to put that team together.
Oh, what?
A World 11 and see what happens.
Well, it's just my dream team, you know.
Oh yeah, but, hey, it's your dream team and it's a beautiful one, I have to admit. You mentioned Maradona being your GOAT of all time. Mine's Messi, because obviously I grew up in that era. Where do you stand on the Messi-Ronaldo debate? It's the last question of the night, by the way.
Okay. I would.
Interested in your thoughts on that.
Crikey. Do you know, I've been asked this a few times, not formally as we are now.
Yeah.
I feel, and you know, I can't make my mind up. That's how good they both are. Billy, I'm not belittling either.
No.
You know.
Well, I don't belittle them. What I've always said to people when they ask me the question is that I prefer to watch Messi because he plays the game how I like to see it played. Ronaldo is a great goal scorer. The work that he put into his career is unbelievable. You know, he's fitness, the way he's
the fact that he's playing, he's still, albeit in Saudi, the fact that he's still playing for Portugal. So
yeah, exactly. He's
a model.
But I prefer to watch Messi as in like you would prefer to watch Maradona because of the way that they with the ball, they got you out of your seat and stuff like that. That's the way.
If you were to ask me, if you'd have phrased the question differently and said, who do you prefer, or who did you used to prefer watching, Messi or Ronaldo? I would go with Messi.
Yeah,
because he'd be doing things while Cristiano was picking his nose, and then all of a sudden, Cristiano would do something quite unbelievable and score a goal.
Yeah. I mean, there was that one against, I think it was, was it Lisbon? When he in the Champions League quarterfinals and he hits it from 40 yards and it flies in the top corner. There's not many players in the world who could do that. Ronaldo did that. But then you watch what Messi did for Barcelona and he virtually recreated the Maradona goal, didn't he, at club level?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And that's what I prefer to watch in football is Peter Beardsley, for me, is the greatest player ever to wear a Newcastle shirt. And I just love the way he played football as well. He's very intelligent.
Yeah.
You know, those defense splitting passes and things like that. So it's a tough one because I've always said like Messi is up here with loads of people. Messi's up here. It's. I
mean, the great thing about the two of them, Ronaldo and Messi, when you think about it, you could easily have them in the same team.
Oh yeah, easily.
You know, they wouldn't infringe on each other.
Yeah, you have one from the left, one from the right, couldn't you? And it would
exactly
work really well. There is one last question in the chat. I do apologize.
No problem.
It's a very good question. Looking back at your legend, looking back at your legendary broadcasting career, if you could relive one moment, be it a match, an interview, or behind-the-scenes experience, which one would it be, and why does it still stand out as your best one?
Oh, hi.
Great question to end on that.
Great question, but a terrible question to drop on me, and you know. I need warning about that. Well, in newspapers, radio, and television, I'd have to say that the one thing that sort of stands out and stands head and shoulders above all the others would be that game at Anfield in '89. I'll probably end this. We'll end the interview, and I'll say, why didn't I? But and I think that's also the thing I'm asked about more than any other.
Yeah, definitely. There's one in here where it's obviously I've read a lot about you getting ready for this interview, and there was something about you remembered about a certain interview, and I can't find it now.
A certain interview that doesn't narrow it down.
It doesn't know. I know. I'm
trying to how many interviews I've done down the years.
He's remembered for the interview with the then UK Sports Minister Colin Moynihan. Is that his name?
Colin Moynihan.
Yeah, Moynihan.
Yeah.
Well,
it happened. Yeah, it was in Stuttgart in the European Championships in 1988, where there was the hooliganism problem. It was very prevalent at that time, and I think a few England fans, so-called fans, have been misbehaving somewhere or other. And I actually saw Colin Moynihan in Stuttgart. I was with a camera crew, and I literally doorstepped him, cornered him, and said, Mr. Minister, whatever, I can't remember what I called him now. I might have called him Colin, I don't know. He was known as the miniature of sport because he's about 4'10". Seriously, well, he was a cox for either Oxford or Cambridge,
right?
In the boat race. You see how this is totally unrehearsed, and I'm just piecing this together now, bit by bit. So, but you've got the gist. A little guy, Minister of Sport, he was a cox in the boat race. That's the guy. And I cornered and said, Mr. Moynihan, Mr. Minister, what are you going to do about the hooligan problem? And he said, well, if it continues, if it gets out of hand, I'll be bringing the England team home.
Oh, wow.
And obviously that went out on ITV the following day. All the newspapers picked up on it, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do recall that incident and that interview in my book. But it's not something that I think about every day or anything like that. Far from it.
I love it. Well, we've got a few quick messages of thanks here. So, great guest. Thanks for joining us. Very refreshing to hear from you. I could listen to Elton all night. Thank you so much for sharing with us, and definitely be buying.
What's her name?
That's Leslie. That's Leslie. She runs the channel in the background when.
Oh, right.
The chat's going, so if anyone's being silly, she can boot them off.
I was being a bit flippant then, but anyway, go on. Hi, Leslie. No problem.
Elton, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you for joining us. Great show, Baz, as always. Thank you for watching from Chairs. John says, thank you again for the show again. I hope you all have a great Xmas in the new year. Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody. But I'd like to add that too. Merry Christmas to everybody and a very happy new year.
Definitely. Gary says, great show tonight. A big thanks to Elton for bringing back some great memories for me and reminding us all that the great players and managers of yesteryear. Yeah, we do forget about them a lot now because of the way, time moves on and like that. But some of the names you mentioned in that top 11 are unbelievable. And I've seen a few of them play, but not all of them. And there we go. Excellent interview, Elton. You had some career. And again, I'll just quickly put this back up. Obviously, if you would like to buy his book, eltonwelsby.com, if you just all lowercase, put that into any Google search or any internet search engine, it'll take you to Amazon, and that's where you can buy the book. Everyone go and buy it because there's some fantastic stories in there. There's some that we haven't touched on that I probably would have liked to have touched on, like Sir Alex Ferguson. You've got bits in about him in there, haven't you? And
yes.
Lots of other stuff. So please go and buy it. I will be buying it myself and having a read of it when I get a chance. And there'll be a few other people as well. So from me, Elton, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope I've done you proud. And thanks to everyone in the chat with the questions. You've kept it going with some fantastic questions in there and threw Elton under the bus with the last one.
Yeah,
It was a great question.
it was.
To everyone in the chat,
I'm still thinking that question and what my answer should have been, other than, Liverpool against Arsenal in '89. There must be something else.
No, I mean, again, you mentioned it a few times tonight, so it is definitely up there, isn't it? It's bumping.
No, it really is. Yeah.
Moment. So
yeah.
I think it's a perfect answer, to be honest with you. So I think you've done well. And I just want to thank everyone in the chat and yourself out there, and have a great Christmas and a great New Year. And keep in touch, and hopefully your book is a big success. And I'll be looking forward to reading it.
Thanks, Baz.
I appreciate it. Good night, everyone. Merry Christmas.